We will fight to win. US President Trump lays out his new strategy for Afghanistan and South Asia, announcing an end to pre-decided military timescales there and promising to boost troops and funding. Spanish police shoot dead the suspect they've been tracking in relation to Thursday's deadly Barcelona van attack, as the victim death toll rises to 15. And millions of Americans turn their gaze to the skies as a total solar eclipse sweeps across the country. Hello and welcome to France 24. I'm Catherine Clifford. We begin at Fort Myer in Arlington, Virginia, where US President Donald Trump has just given a much-awaited national security address, giving a detailed justification of his own U-turn on Afghanistan. He said his initial instinct was to pull out, but his view from the Oval Office had changed his mind, and that Washington would be stepping up its fight against terrorists in the country to prevent creating a terror vacuum. He also used the occasion to say the US would decrease its tolerance to Pakistan.
We will not talk about numbers of troops or our plans for further military activities. Conditions on the ground, not arbitrary timetables, will guide our strategy from now on. America's enemies must never know our plans or believe they can wait us out. I will not say when we are going to attack, but attack we will. We can no longer be silent about Pakistan's safe havens for terrorist organizations, the Taliban, and other groups that pose a threat to the region and beyond. Pakistan has much to gain from partnering with our effort in Afghanistan. It has much to lose by continuing to harbor criminals and terrorists. It is time for Pakistan to demonstrate its commitment to civilization, order, and to peace.
Not nation building, but killing terrorists. Trump painted a picture of relentless involvement in Afghanistan, saying there will be no withdrawal until victory. He described a new strategy which will step away from timeframes, surprising those who expected him to cite dates and figures on boosts to troops and funds. Our Washington correspondent Philip Crowther gave us his analysis.
Despite a lot of reporting about an increase in troop numbers in Afghanistan and a lot of talk about that increase being up to 4,000 further US soldiers that could be sent to Afghanistan under US President Donald Trump, there was no such announcement from him at a military base just outside of Washington. It is, though, very likely that further American soldiers will be sent to America's longest war. There has been no victory in Afghanistan for the United States in its 16 years it has been at war in Afghanistan. So Donald Trump decided to define what he sees as victory there. And there are some elements to that. First of all, he wants the destruction, the defeat of the Islamic State organization, first of all, which is getting a foothold in Afghanistan, and of al-Qaeda, still not defeated in Afghanistan after 16 years of war. He also says the United States now, in order to ensure victory, cannot have the Taliban taking control again in Afghanistan, and Donald Trump wants to make sure that there are no more terror attacks organized, staged in the United States or anywhere that are organized in Afghanistan. From Donald Trump also a rationalization and an explanation as to how he came to this decision to stay at war in Afghanistan, because before becoming US president, he had called for a very swift withdrawal of US troops under US President Obama, his predecessor. He says that the power of the office, the power of being president and being in the Oval Office, made him make a different decision in consultation with the Pentagon and the generals who are very much part of his inner team. They have decided, together with the US president, that it is worth keeping US soldiers in Afghanistan, and there was, importantly, no end date given by Donald Trump, no end date for the war that the United States has been fighting for 16 years now in Afghanistan.
Meanwhile, the US has suspended its search for 5 of its soldiers after their helicopter crashed during offshore training in Hawaii last week. Searchers had found what appeared to be pieces of helicopter fuselage and a helmet, but the zone containing the debris was swept away by strong currents. The US Embassy in Russia has said it will temporarily suspend issuing non-immigrant visas until the end of the month. The decision comes after Moscow ordered a cap on the number of American diplomatic staff in Russia. Sharon Gaffney has more.
Visiting the United States from the world's largest country is about to become more complicated for many of its citizens. Russians wishing to secure non-immigrant visas for the US will no longer be able to apply through American consulates outside Moscow. They'll have to travel to the Russian capital instead. It comes less than a month after Moscow ordered Washington to more than halve its embassy and consular staff in retaliation for the latest round of US sanctions. The Russian foreign minister has accused the United States of attempting to stir up ill feeling.
My first impression is that this decision is another attempt to provoke discontent among Russian citizens over the actions of the Russian government. We will not be taking out our anger on American citizens.
The move could affect hundreds of thousands of Russian tourists.
We are very disappointed because we are going to visit relatives in the US. That was our plan.
We'd already bought tickets, so we're going to lose money. Of course, it's unpleasant for us as ordinary tourists. We've got nothing to do with the political disagreements between nations.
Accusations of Russian meddling in last year's US presidential election have led to already frosty relations between the two countries deteriorating further. In a move that's being seen as provocative, Russian President Vladimir Putin has announced the appointment of a new ambassador to the US, his combative Deputy Foreign Minister Anatoly Antonov.
Moving on to Barcelona, Spanish police say the man they shot dead just outside the city this Monday is the suspect they've been searching for. They confirmed that 22-year-old Younes Abouyacoub was responsible for last Thursday's van attack on the La Rambla promenade. The victim death toll from that day has risen to 15. Emerald Maxwell has more.
He was the last accomplice still at large. A member of the cell accused of being behind the attacks in Barcelona and Cambrils. Now police have shot dead Younes Abouyacoub in the area of Subirats, following a 5-day manhunt. He was wearing what appeared to be an explosives belt. The rural area is just 40 kilometers from where he allegedly ploughed a van down Las Ramblas, killing and wounding pedestrians.
Just before 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the Catalan police has shot dead Younes Abouyacoub, driver of the van and direct perpetrator of the attack in Barcelona on Thursday.
Police say the death toll from the attacks that day has risen to include a man whose body was found in an abandoned car. Abouyacoub allegedly stabbed him when he hijacked the vehicle to flee the city. Police also confirmed that the imam who is believed to have radicalized the rest of the terror cell was also killed in an accidental explosion at a house in Alcanar, south of Barcelona, that was being used as a bomb factory.
The remains indicate there were 2 people, and based on the witnesses' accounts and some seized documents, the evidence points to the imam as the person present that night at the Alcanar address.
Of the 12 known accomplices, 8 are now dead. 4 are being held and will go in front of the High Court in Madrid.
And for a reminder of the manhunt being carried out since last Thursday that led Spanish police to Younes Abouyacoub, Luke Schrago takes us back through the details.
This is the man suspected of being at the wheel of the vehicle that ran through crowds in Barcelona on Thursday. Published in Spanish media, stills from security footage show Younes Abouyacoub just minutes after the attack. Apparently unarmed, the 22-year-old Moroccan was thought to have used the confusion in the aftermath to escape on foot. It took investigators 4 days to catch up with him, retracing his steps. After abandoning the van used to mow down people on Las Ramblas, video surveillance caught Abu Yaqub on camera, first entering, then leaving the Boqueria market. 50 minutes later, he's suspected of ramming through a police checkpoint in a stolen car. That vehicle was later dumped in the suburb of Saint-Just-des-Vins, its owner found stabbed to death in the back seat. Police carried out searches in Ripoll, where Abu Yaqub lived, as a European arrest warrant went out. The fear was that he'd managed to cross the border. However, Abu Yaqub hadn't in fact managed to flee far. He was found just 10 kilometers to the west of Barcelona, where he died when shot in a police operation. This, as Spanish authorities also confirmed the identity of a Moroccan imam who'd been missing for several days. His body was found with at least one other in a house in Alcanar that blew up on Wednesday. While police initially suspected a gas explosion, investigations later revealed 100 intact bottles of butane gas, along with bomb-making materials.
The explosives currently being discovered are the same ones that were used in other Islamic State group attacks. Ingredients of the same kinds of bombs are being found, which leads us to conclude that this is where they were building the explosives.
The imam is thought to be at the head of the terrorist cell and may have helped indoctrinate the young attackers, all in their teens and 20s. In all, police believe 12 people were involved in the planning and execution of the attacks on Thursday and Friday.
A 4.0 magnitude earthquake struck the Italian holiday island of Ischia on Monday, with debris killing at least one person and trapping several others. Police said all but one of these known to be trapped were responding to rescuers and were expected to be extracted alive. That's including 3 children. Some 25 people were hurt in the quake, which has hit the island during peak tourist season. And now to Nigeria, where President Muhammadu Buhari has addressed the nation 2 days after returning to the country, this following 3 months receiving medical treatment in the UK. Many Nigerians have been hoping for information on his health, with some saying his mysterious illness deems him unfit to run the country. Buhari said he was distressed by calls for the dissolution of Nigeria, urging for unity. Let's take a listen.
I'm pleased to be back. Nigerians' unity is settled and not negotiable. We shall not allow irresponsible elements to start trouble, and when things get bad, they run away and settle others with the responsibility of bringing back order, if necessary, with their blood.
And finally, this Monday, millions of Americans have put on special protective glasses to watch the moon blot out the sun. Sharon Gaffney has more.
It's been just under 100 years since the last time a total solar eclipse swept coast to coast across the US. Millions of skywatchers and amateur astronomers flocked to viewing points to watch the moon's shadow pass directly in front of the sun, blotting out its light.
I've wanted to see one of these my whole life, since I've been studying astronomy since I was a kid, and I thought I was prepared for it. I totally wasn't. I was shaking, I was crying, I was just totally taken aback by just how beautiful it was.
I still have goosebumps that are completely over my body because that's what it was. Yeah. You think you know something, you think you're prepared for it, but you have absolutely no idea.
The eclipse could be seen in 14 states, beginning in the west coast at Oregon and ending 90 minutes later over South Carolina.
The shadow path across the Earth is usually in the water, like across the ocean, or it's in hard to get places. This path actually goes across all the United States. It starts in Oregon and goes across, and so it's called the Great American Eclipse because so many Americans can see it and witness totality.
The next time such an event occurs in the US won't be until 2045.
Stay tuned to France 24.